Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today. Also, you can request any novel so I can turn into audiobooks. Check out our Patreon for more details.
51. Let you know what cruelty is. In a small grove in Cornwall, several wizards, bundled up tightly, hurried along with their suitcases. Their faces were alight with obvious excitement. After all, they knew that the suitcases they had snatched contained materials from a full 10 dragons. In the wizarding world, materials from dragons were never cheap. Even dragon dung was considered a rather precious material for alchemy and potions. The materials from 10 dragons, even if split evenly, would be enough for each of them to live comfortably for a lifetime. However, amidst their excitement, the thought of the pursuit they would face next cast a shadow over their hearts. We stole from the Romanian Dragon Reserve, they won't let us off. And the British Ministry of Magic will definitely launch a massive search. Do you think we can make it to the other side? In response, the leading wizard sneered, revealing an extraordinary confidence. Stop scaring yourselves. The Dragon Reserve is indeed powerful, and it's said to be connected to vampires, but once we're out of Romania, their influence will shrink significantly. As for the British Ministry of Magic, isn't it widely known to be run by incompetents? So many things have happened in Britain recently, dark wizards, Gringotts being robbed, and we haven't seen the British Ministry of Magic make any significant moves. They are truly nothing to worry about. Of course, in the past, a buyer with the ability to purchase 10 dragons at once was someone no one wanted to provoke. Not to mention those who buy dragon materials in large quantities. They are either potions masters, alchemists, or even certain dragon research organizations. God knows what they could do if we provoked them. But this transaction is different. I've found out that the one buying the dragon materials isn't an alchemist, not a potions master, and certainly not some research organization. It's just an 11-year-old little wizard. At this point, the leading wizard's expression grew even more smug. An 11-year-old little wizard, maybe he has some status and wealth, but to us, he's the softest target. We might not get an opportunity like this for years, even decades. If we don't squeeze him, who will we squeeze? Stealing his dragon materials is better than stealing from those tough characters. Can he really come running over here to reason with us? The wizard waved his wand dismissively. We can't beat those potions masters and alchemists, but we can't beat an 11-year-old little wizard. If he really comes, I'll give him a good lesson on behalf of his parents, and let him know what it means to be utterly wicked. His decisive words rang out, causing the other wizards to chuckle as well. Their confidence soared, and their pace quickened. After running a bit further, they would reach the prearranged Port Kea location and escape far away using the Port Kea. By then, wealth and glory would be waiting for them. But as they ran, these wizards suddenly felt a strange sensation. Do you feel like the sky is a bit darker than before? Yeah, it's so strange. Since just now, it feels like a shadow has been covering us. And I think I heard the sound of a dragon flapping its wings. The few of them exchanged glances, then simultaneously looked up at the sky. They saw a juvenile Ukrainian ironbelly spreading its wings in the sky, already above them. Its 6 or 7 meter wingspan cast a shadow that perfectly enveloped them. The pupils of these few people constricted slightly, feeling a sense of incomprehension. A dragon? Following us here? What's going on? Among them were employees of the Dragon Reserve and hunters of magical creatures. They knew the habits of dragons too well. How could a Ukrainian ironbelly appear in this place? And how could it possibly have been following them all along? This didn't make sense. The wizards stopped one after another, drew their wands, their expression solemn, and stood on guard. In the air, this Ukrainian ironbelly was naturally Charles, who had used the animagus spell. He had operat from St. Mungo's hospital to the place closest to Cornwall that he had visited before, then transformed into his dragon form. Relying on the scent from a piece of cloth he had taken from Bill, he had tracked them all the way here. At this moment, seeing the wizards hurrying through the small grove below, Charles' eyes churned with coldness. You stole my things and you still want to run? It's always been my place, Charles, to steal from others, never for others to steal from me. A low dragon roar echoed above the small grove. Among the wizards, several of them looked towards one particular wizard. He was the only one among them who had learned dragon tongue and could understand the meaning of dragon roars. Now facing Charles, who had transformed into a fire dragon, they felt uncertain and desperately needed a translator. Quick, translate what this fire dragon is saying. The wizard who understood dragon tongue was stunned for a moment, then quickly translated. This fire dragon says we stole its things. It also says that it has always been Charles who steals from others, and no one who steals from it can leave alive. Upon hearing this, the leading wizard was taken aback. Wait a minute, what did you say its name is? Charles? It says its name is Charles? A look of surprise and uncertainty appeared on the wizard's face. If I remember correctly, the little wizard who bought the dragon materials we stole this time was named Charles. Don't tell me this fire dragon is Charles. The wizards fell silent, then one by one their eyes widened as they looked at the leading wizard. Boss, didn't you just say that you should pick the soft persimmons to squeeze, and that Charles was that soft persimmon? He's come knocking. Boss, quickly teach him a lesson and let him know what it means to be utterly vicious. The leading wizard felt like he had been screwed over. What kind of world is this? No, you're a fire dragon, and you've learned to order things using newspapers, and you're buying dragon materials from the Romanian Dragon Reserve? What the hell are you trying to do? You even left a message saying you're 11 years old? 11 years old. However, after the feeling of his worldview being completely messed up, the wizard raised his wand and calmed down from his panic. So what if it's a fire dragon? Fire dragons are slaughtered every day at the Romanian Dragon Reserve. Adult fire dragons are even tamed and kept on chains by wizards, let alone a young dragon like this? Compared to alchemists and potions masters with their endless methods and vast connections, this was the softest persimmon. His gaze turned cold. Charles, is it? I admit we stole your dragon materials, but you, a young dragon, dare to overestimate yourself and come knocking. The wizard sneered, a ferocious expression appearing on his face. I've worked at the Romanian Dragon Reserve for many years and have personally slaughtered no less than 10 adult fire dragons. My spells have pierced the scales of the fiercest fire dragons, and the wails of fire dragons are wrapped around me. You think you're the predator at the top of the food chain? No, 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 meeting me means your death is imminent. He raised his wand and pointed it at Charles' dragon body. I'll show you what cruelty is. Join me on Patreon if you want to request a novel, link in the description. 52 Just crushing a bug, deriving the dragon roar. Looking at Charles, the wizard revealed a look of determination. Waving his wand, spells with various special effects against dragons whistled out. Each spell was improved by the wizards at the Romanian Dragon Reserve specifically for dragons, targeting their weaknesses. For example, the eye disease curse, which is highly effective against dragons, can cause them to fall into temporary blindness and severe eye pain, making them lose their minds and expose more flaws. There were also spells to weaken and break through dragon scales. After hitting, they could effectively reduce the magical resistance of the dragon's skin, paving the way for subsequent spells to take effect. However, seeing the streaks of light flying towards the sky, the wizard next to him couldn't help but remind him, "Boss, it's off, the spell is off." The leading wizard was full of confidence and said calmly, "What are you anxious about? Let the spell fly a little longer. Dragons have inertia, understand? I precisely calculated the speed of the spell's flight and Charles' speed. This way, I can greatly increase the hit rate of the spell on the dragon. Within 3 seconds, Charles will be shot down by my spell. 3, 2, 1. He calmly counted down the seconds. Indeed, the spell's light was about to touch Charles. A smile appeared at the corner of the wizard's mouth, waiting for the sight of Charles falling from the sky. But the next moment, the smile that had just appeared on his face instantly froze. The Ukrainian iron belly that was rapidly diving down from midair actually disappeared out of thin air. In its place was the figure of a young human wizard. The spells that were originally aimed at the dragon's massive body naturally missed completely. This unbelievable scene left the wizards below in a daze. The dragon turned back into a young wizard? Was this thing in front of them a dragon or a wizard? But in the brief moment they were stunned, Charles had no intention of stopping. With a flick of his wand, the dust-free land curse spread out. The overbearing invisible domain enveloped the few wizards below, instantly cutting off their ability to use magic. Then came Charles' low whisper, "Do you also want to dance?" A piercing explosion sounded. Charles directly used short-distance apparition, crossing the distance from midair to stand before these wizards. These wizards had no time to react at all. The wands in their hands were twisted away by the vines that came alive in the forest, and they themselves were hoisted up by the branches. All of this happened in an instant. By the time they reacted, the battle was already decided, and they didn't even know exactly what had happened. Several fearful gazes fell on Charles. The methods of this 11-year-old young wizard were simply too bizarre. The leading wizard also felt a bitter ache in his heart. Damn it, he really thought Charles, this young wizard, was a pushover, which was why he decisively took action to intercept Charles' dragon materials midway. Who knew he would provoke such an unpredictable and ruthless character? However, even though his wand was thrown away and he was hoisted up, the wizard still regained his composure and looked at Charles, saying, "Mr. Charles, I've lost this time. I thought you were a pushover, but I didn't expect to hit a hard wall. How about this? I apologize to you. As for these 10 dragon materials, you take 5, and you can continue to demand compensation from the Romanian Dragon Reserve. You'll even make a profit. As for the remaining 5, we'll take them and split them. How about we both take a step back on this matter today? Let's be friends, maybe we can use each other in the future," he said faintly. "After all, Mr. Charles, you don't want to get blood on your hands, do you?" The other wizards also said one after another, "That's right, we admit defeat. Let's be merciful where we can. Otherwise, you can't possibly kill us, can you? Don't be impulsive, you still have to go to Hogwarts. If Dumbledore finds out about the killing, you'll be in big trouble." One of the wizards even thought he had grasped the young wizard's weakness of being soft-hearted and afraid of seeing blood, and said there, "Have you ever killed anyone, Charles? Have you seen the color of blood? Bright red blood bursting from veins, splashing high, and even getting into your mouth, that salty taste. Do you know how many ways there are to kill someone? With a knife, piercing the soft neck, severing the blood vessels. With a rope, breaking the neck bone, it makes a snapping sound. Or with the killing curse, that's the fastest, but if you're caught, you'll be locked up in Azkaban. You know about Azkaban, right? The place you go after killing someone. There are dementors there, tisk tisk, they'll suck away all your happiness. A dementor's kiss can even eat a person's soul. Charles, are you going to kill someone? Then go ahead and do it. Do you dare?" The few wizards were hanging there, but they seemed certain that Charles wouldn't actually do it, so they wantonly described death and slaughter, hoping to instill fear and disgust in Charles. If Charles' mind wasn't focused enough under these words and he dispelled the transfiguration, that would be even better. With the young wizard's unstable state of mind, they might not be without a chance to turn the tables. But the next moment, snap, a crisp sound rang out, bringing the wizards shouting to an abrupt halt. The neck of the one who had been shouting the loudest was twisted off by the branches animated by transfiguration, cleanly and efficiently. Charles even made the branches twist 2 extra turns to ensure he was thoroughly dead. Instantly, the small woods fell into a deathly silence. The remaining wizards who were still alive stared at Charles, their eyes glazed over. This didn't make sense. How could a young wizard kill someone? How could he dare to kill someone? How could he bear to kill someone? He was still a child, shouldn't he be struggling with an internal conflict and then decide to give them another chance? Why wasn't Charles playing by the rules? Then, terrified screams erupted. The wizards looked at Charles with fearful eyes. You killed someone?" Charles grinned, and said faintly, "Weren't you just shouting for me to kill you?" He was particularly enthusiastic, so I satisfied him. "Why do all of you have this expression again? Could it be that you thought I was here to joke around with you, to play house?" The boxes in the wizard's hands were pierced by a vine and sent to Charles. Charles opened the boxes. The dragon materials inside were still relatively fresh, but some magic power had already begun to dissipate. In other words, the deduction points that could be obtained from them would be reduced. Charles' expression gradually darkened. "Do you know how much I was looking forward to this batch of materials? Do you know how important this batch of materials is to me? You not only wasted my time, but also caused damage to my materials, and even saw my secret. Just how naive were your thoughts to think I wouldn't kill you, and even dare to discuss the proposal of splitting the dragon materials with me?" Charles' gaze was as cold as ice. From the moment he came to chase after this batch of materials, he had already made up his mind. These people, they all had to die. He waved his wand. The branches began to tighten one by one. Snap, snap. The crisp sounds of necks being twisted off echoed in the woods. Charles even deliberately left the leading wizard for last. "Didn't you want me to know what cruelty is? Letting you be the last to die, and not being able to die as quickly as your companions, is that cruel enough?" The wizard's face was filled with extreme terror. "You can't kill me, you can't kill me. The Ministry of Magic will investigate, there will be traces left, they can extract memories, there's no way you can hide the fact that you killed someone. Leave me alive, I can help you get rid of the investigation, I can be a scapegoat, let the Ministry of Magic chase me, as long as you let me live." Charles, however, showed no reaction. With a wave of his wand, the wizard suffocated, his face turning blue and purple. After struggling for a while, he stopped moving. Immediately, Charles sneered. "Traces? You are so naive even in death, thinking I would let you, who have seen my trump card, keep a complete body, keep any memories? Charles' expression was indifferent, and his mithril wand glowed with dazzling light. A ball of light floated out from the tip of the wand, emitting a light as dazzling as the sun. Eternal blazing Sunday. As the ball of light drifted towards the corpses, Charles transformed back into a fire dragon, flapped his wings, and quickly flew away from the area. Seconds later, behind him, a violent burst of light and heat erupted. Everything in the center of that forest, the remaining corpses, the traces of battle, were all completely annihilated under the eternal blazing sun. Charles turned his head, his orange vertical pupils reflecting the brilliant light. Killing? It didn't seem to carry any burden. In the novels he read in his previous life, there were all sorts of disgusting reactions after killing someone, but he didn't feel anything at all. Calm, indifferent, like crushing a few fragile insects. Nothing more than this. Charles' attention didn't even linger on this for too long before shifting to the fire dragon materials he had on hand. If he didn't consume them quickly, more magic power would dissipate, and the loss would be greater. Finding an open space to land, Charles' dragon claws grabbed the suitcases one by one, then he opened his mouth and dropped the suitcases into it. As the suitcases and the 10 fire dragon materials within them were converted by deep blue, Charles' deduction points began to surge again. 900,000, 930,000, 970,000. Every moment, the deduction points soared by tens of thousands. In a short while, Charles' total deduction points broke through 1,000,000 and continued to climb. 1,050,000, 1,100,000, 1,200,000. Finally, the number settled at 1,360,000. Looking at this number, Charles' eyes showed eagerness. This was the first time he had possessed so many deduction points. Even the 300,000 points required for the initial deduction of Roar of Power were something he could easily afford. Then, Charles hesitated for a moment. Should he start deducting the dragon language magic, Roar of Power now, or save the deduction points for later? At this moment, the scene of the battle just now appeared in his mind. Those wizards had either stayed at a dragon reserve or were magical creature hunters, and they all had methods to deal with fire dragons. If even these minor characters were like this, powerful wizards would only have more ways to deal with fire dragons. When Charles chose to transform into a fire dragon, he had already considered this point. At that time, he was thinking of deducting dragon language magic, transforming from a fire dragon into an ancient dragon, completely compensating for his weaknesses. Now, his gaze became firm. Since he had decided to take this path, there was no need to hesitate. If he had already possessed dragon language magic just now, there would have been no need to transform back into human form from a fire dragon. A single roar of power would have been enough to shatter those wizards along with their spells. Magical animagus, as Charles' trump card, was naturally better the stronger it was. The next moment, Charles made his decision and said in his mind, "Deep Blue, deduct Roar of Power for me." Join me on Patreon if you want to request a novel, link in the description. 53 Ancient Dragon, Dragon Roar. Entering will I again. As the whisper echoed in Charles' mind, 300,000 deduction points were instantly deducted. Then, the roar containing dragon language magic, which had sounded in his mind during his transformation into a fire dragon, began to roar again. And this time, the dragon roar became exceptionally clear. Power, power, power. The roars of a giant dragon echoed dully in Charles' mind. Just like the deduction of the wizard's spells before, it was as if in countless parallel worlds, countless Charles who had mastered the magical Oxio were diligently studying the Roar of Power day and night. The originally fragmented and somewhat blurry inheritance gradually became clear in this kind of deduction. The Roar of Power, this dragon language magic that had long disappeared from the magical world, transformed into Charles' instinct as the deduction points burned. If Dumbledore and other dragon language experts knew about this, it would likely cause a huge stir. This was dragon language magic that only ancient dragons from ancient times could master. There was simply no corresponding research material in the magical world. Even if dragon language experts obtained the same fragmented inheritance, it would likely require countless experts working together for many years to fully restore the Roar of Power. As for mastering this dragon language magic, among the many fire dragons in the magical world now, not a single one capable of using dragon language magic has appeared again, let alone a wizard. Even Dumbledore, being able to communicate using dragon language, was already an extremely remarkable achievement. As for using dragon language magic, this was impossible. It was simply a miracle. However, at this moment, such a miracle was unfolding on Charles with the help of Deep Blue. A mechanical notification sound rang out in Charles' mind. Roar of Power's initial deduction is complete. The fragmented parts of the Roar of Power inheritance have been filled in. The host will be able to perfectly use the Roar of Power in the dragon form of magical Oxio. Charles took a deep breath. Everything about the Roar of Power was already flowing through his bloodline like an instinct. He began to understand why dragon language, or rather, dragon roar, was so important to dragons. It was like how wizards needed to use wands to easily cast spells and unleash powerful incantations. Dragon roar was the combination of a dragon's wand, spell, and casting posture. Dragons that couldn't use dragon roar, such as the fire dragons in the magical world today, were the squibs among dragons, deformed creatures without casting ability, and could even be said to be not much different from wild beasts. Only dragons that mastered dragon roar were true ancient dragons, a race that wizards would revere, not livestock raised and slaughtered in dragon farms as they are now. At the same time, due to the dragon's unique and powerful magic and special talent, the magic cast with dragon roar, even the most basic roar of power, had a power far beyond the imagination of ordinary wizards. Furthermore, in the process of mastering more dragon language magic and casting dragon roar, the dragon's body would also resonate with the magic. The sheer size of an ancient dragon's body, the vastness of its power, and the strength of its magic resistance were not on the same level as current fire dragons, and this was gained through years of casting dragon roar. Dragon roar was not only the weapon of ancient dragons but also their method of training. Charles, in his fire dragon form, had a burning look in his eyes. Let me see the power of dragon language magic. The next moment, Charles activated the roar of power. A vast and low roar surged from the fire dragon's throat, like rolling thunder. Immediately after, powerful magic erupted, forming a powerful shockwave that spread forward. In an instant, rumbling sounds echoed through the forest. In a large fan-shaped area in front of Charles, trees looked as if they had encountered a terrifying typhoon. Even trees that several people could hug were directly broken in half by the shockwave, with wood chips flying everywhere. The ground looked as if it had been plowed, turning up the mud and rocks beneath. Everything within dozens of meters in front was completely destroyed by this single roar of power. Charles' eyes showed a look of shock. As expected of the ancient dragon's dragon language magic, even the most basic roar of power was terrifyingly powerful. When he faced those wizards before, if he had already mastered the roar of power, why would he need to revert to human form to dodge spells? A single roar of power would have shattered everything below. At this moment, besides marveling at the power of the roar of power, Charles' bones and muscles all over his body began to crackle after this dragon roar. He could clearly feel that the dragon body in his fire dragon form was becoming stronger in all aspects after this roar. His bones and muscles became tougher, the wing membranes covering his wings became thicker, and even the scales and skin on his body could resist spells better than before. Charles gasped. Is this the path of the ancient dragons? It's unreasonable, it's really damn unreasonable. The dragon roar is powerful, and it can also promote the strengthening of the dragon body in turn. No wonder the few records I've seen about ancient dragons all mention that ancient dragons were invincible beings. How can ordinary wizards fight back when it's this shameless? Charles was quite satisfied with this. It was worth the great effort he had put in. The rewards were indeed worthwhile. Give him some more time, deduce a few more dragon roars, and roar a few more times. In his magical Oxio form, Charles felt he could go head-to-head with Dumbledore and Voldemort. Meanwhile, in distant Romania, amidst towering mountains, a magnificent ancient castle was hidden within ancient magic. Beneath the ancient castle, a sea of blood surged, with countless dragon skeletons floating within it. This was clearly a sea of dragon blood, and in the sea of dragon blood, a massive coffin floated and sank, as if it had been there for a long time. It wasn't until Charles unleashed his power in England that the massive coffin suddenly vibrated, and an excited voice came from within. Dragon roar? I felt a dragon roar. A faint sensation, but there's no mistake, this is definitely a dragon roar, the roar of power of dragon language magic. In this era, there's still an ancient dragon appearing. Then, a figure arrived in the sea of dragon blood and humbly knelt on one knee towards the coffin. Master, you summon me? From within the coffin, a low voice came. An ancient dragon has been born in England. Go there and bring this ancient dragon back to me, try to capture it alive. If that's not possible, bring back a fresh corpse and soul. The servant couldn't help but raise his head and ask in a low voice, Master, bring back an ancient dragon? Me? The voice from within the coffin sounded again. Don't worry, no one in this era understands ancient dragons better than I do. Dragon language magic is extremely difficult. A newborn ancient dragon also needs a long time to gradually master new dragon language magic. It's normal for it to take several years, over a decade, or even decades to master a new dragon language magic. An ancient dragon that only knows the roar of power will not be a problem for you to deal with. Upon hearing this, the servant also breathed a sigh of relief. He secretly pondered, if I go to England now and search for traces of the ancient dragon, I'll definitely find it within a year or two at most. At that time, I'll only be facing a newborn ancient dragon. According to the master, it won't be my opponent. Then won't I be accomplishing a great feat that no one in this era can match, killing an ancient dragon alone? Thinking of this, the worry in the servant's eyes vanished, replaced by excitement. Instantly, he transformed into a swarm of vampire bats and flew towards the outside of the sea of dragon blood. Inside the leaky cauldron, Charles' figure returned to the room. At this moment, the fatigue on his face was undeniable. After all, he had first searched non-stop for the wizards who had stolen the dragon materials, then fought a battle, and released the eternal blazing sun spell to clear the traces. Afterward, in his magical Oxio form, he released a roar of power. This series of actions had taken a considerable toll on him. Charles lay down on the soft bed, closed his eyes, and now needed sleep to recover his energy. Almost the moment he lay down on the bed, Charles fell asleep. He didn't know how much time had passed, but when Charles opened his eyes, the scene before him was no longer the leaky cauldron, but a beach with strange rocks and an ocean like black oil. In the distance from the beach, an ancient, exquisite, and bizarre city stood. From the temple in the city came low, hoarse whispers. Upon seeing this chilling scene, Charles was first stunned, then overjoyed. This sea, this beach, this city, isn't this the buffet? Bah, isn't this the R'lyeh he had been thinking about? He was here again. At this moment, Charles' gaze swept forward. A massive figure, its countless tentacles writhing, appeared before him once more. This form, which could no longer be called human, still bore Dak's face. At this moment, he looked at Charles, the panic that had once been on his face gone, replaced by the confidence of someone in control of everything. Charles, my friend, we meet again. Do you see it, my beautiful body? Charles stared fixedly at Dak, only one thought remaining in his mind. So many tentacles, so many points. His gaze gradually grew fervent. I want to eat it so badly. Join me on Patreon if you want to request a novel, link in the description. 54. This time I've learned my lesson. Second deduction. Noticing Charles' burning gaze, Dak's face showed a confident expression. If I'm not mistaken, you must really want to bite me right now. Just like last time, directly annihilate a part of my existence. I have to admit, Charles, you truly possess unimaginable talent. Even before sublimation, you are so special. But this time, it's different from last time. Along with these words, the tentacles on Dak's body suddenly surged like a tide, tightly wrapping around Charles, even sealing Charles' mouth with a tentacle like a rope. Dak's main body, supported by the tentacles, slowly rose into the air, looking down at the restrained Charles. Are you surprised? Clearly last time I fled in a panic in front of you. Why am I so powerful now that I can easily subdue you here? Are you curious? Dak's face became increasingly fanatical. This is the world after sublimation. The human body has limits, and a wizard's magic also has limits. How strong can they possibly get? At most, like Dumbledore. But the great old ones are beings without limits. After sublimation, at the very beginning, all my power was gambled on the sublimation, and I was very weak, so much so that you easily defeated me last time. But in R'lyeh, I can constantly grow and become stronger just by breathing. Perhaps you have a bit of special talent, but in terms of the speed of becoming stronger, you can never surpass me. The gap between us will only grow wider and wider. Charles, you cannot fight against me. He looked down at Charles, his tentacles swaying. Working so hard to learn spells, only to be surpassed by me in the time it takes to breathe, watching me gradually approach the realm of great terror. Does it feel hopeless? Come on, Charles, stop being so stubborn, embrace glorious evolution, let us together usher in the era of the Ancient One's return. Then, Dak slightly loosened the restraint of the tentacles on Charles' mouth. How about it, Charles, have you figured it out? At this moment, Charles was biting his lip tightly, seemingly restraining some impulse. The greed and fervor in his eyes were almost overflowing. When Dak asked, Charles took a deep breath. I've figured it out. To be honest, after leaving R'lyeh last time, I regretted it day and night, reflecting on the wrong decision I made. I prayed countless times for heaven to give me a chance to make amends, and now, this chance has finally come. I will never make a mistake again. Hearing Charles' words, the face growing on Dak's fleshy ball showed a look of relief. That's right, that's it. I knew, my friend, you would definitely regret missing such a magnificent sight. Join me in glorious evolution. But at this moment, Charles bit down on a tentacle that was dancing in front of him. This action made Dak freeze for a moment, and he had an ominous premonition. "Wait, what are you doing? What do you want to do? Didn't you regret it?" Charles mumbled. "Yes, I've been regretting it before, regretting that I was too hasty in gnawing on your tentacles back then. I hadn't even eaten a few tentacles before I scared you away. This time I've learned my lesson. I've been trying hard to restrain my impulse to take a bite until I waited for so many tentacles. Indeed, self-discipline always pays off. Now, it's finally my time to harvest." Charles bit off a piece of this tentacle. Deep Blue immediately converted it into a large amount of deduction points. And for Dak, it was as if a part of himself had disappeared out of thin air. But after sublimation, he could be said to be an immortal and indestructible being. No spell could destroy him. This strange situation made Dak's face show shock and anger. "I'm going to stuff your mouth. Damn it, Charles, I'm going to take you to the temple, let you witness the greatness of the Ancient Ones. I'm going to force you to start sublimation." Tentacles suddenly exerted force, as if to restrain Charles again. But Charles grinned. "Stuff my mouth? That's really something to look forward to." The next moment, in Dak's horrified expression, Charles activated the magical animagus transformation. His body suddenly swelled, his dragon form stretching out on the beach of R'lyeh, breaking free from the tentacles that Dak had used to bind him. Immediately after, Charles opened his mouth and let out a roar at Dak, none other than the roar of power. The powerful shockwave spread out. Dak, who took the full force of this roar of power almost point blank, shattered on the beach on the spot. Tentacles broke off one by one, and drops of green viscous liquid rained down from the sky. Dak's fragmented face was filled with panic, and two small tentacles grew out, quickly disappearing in front of Charles. Charles' eyes showed anticipation, and he grinned broadly. "Dak, my friend, you'll grow bigger, right? I remember clearly what you just told me, that in this R'lyeh, you can grow stronger just by breathing. So you'll quickly grow as big as you were this time again? I'll be back, I'll definitely find a way to come back here, Dak, I'll come find you again." Amidst the joyful shouts, Charles opened the gaping maw of his dragon form and devoured the Dak tentacles scattered on the beach. These disgusting, wriggling things, in Charles' eyes, were simply delicious delicacies. Every section of tentacle made his deduction points soar. 100,000, 200,000, 300,000. Just the tentacles of Dak scattered on the beach provided Charles with over 1,000,000 deduction points. Then, Charles didn't stop for a moment. He turned to gnaw on the black reefs on the beach and opened his mouth wide to swallow the seawater that looked like black oil. The points that required consuming a large amount of precious materials in the outside world seemed to be everywhere in R'lyeh. With every bite, the deduction points soared. However, Charles was still not satisfied with his eating speed. He felt a little anxious in his heart. "Not enough, not fast enough. The buffet has limited dining time. Last time, I was kicked out after not long. This time, it might be even faster. And who knows when I'll be able to enter R'lyeh again? This time, I must eat my fill." With this thought, Charles made a decision. The initial form of the roar of power is to spew out destructive shockwaves. Can it be reversed, turning into a reverse breath, sucking everything in front into the mouth? If so, using the dragon roar to devour these reefs and seawater would be much more efficient than now. Anyway, I'll have to deduce the roar of power a second time sooner or later, so I might as well do it here. The next moment, Charles said in his mind. "Deep Blue, second deduction of the roar of power. Join me on Patreon if you want to request a novel, link in the description." 55, Torrent of Destruction, 10,000,000 points. As Charles roared the words for the second deduction in his mind, a full 1.5 million deduction points were instantly deducted. The deduction points obtained earlier were instantly halved. But what followed was a vast influx of insights regarding dragon roars and dragon language magic into Charles' dragon body, transforming into bodily instincts. Roar of power, while being the foundation of all dragon language magic and the first dragon roar learned by all ancient dragons, does not mean its power is shallow. Otherwise, how could it accommodate subsequent dragon language magic and even become the symbol of dragon language magic? Exploring the roar of power is a necessary path for ancient dragons to improve, and this process is often very long. Even with the guidance of bloodline inheritance, the time it takes for an ancient dragon to go from the roar of power to learning the next dragon roar is often measured in years. But now, for Charles, who possesses Deep Blue, this process has been shortened to just an instant. The roar of power has undergone a new transformation. After a moment, Deep Blue's prompt sounded in Charles' mind. Second deduction of roar of power completed. Based on the host's requested direction, the result of this deduction is the reversal of the roar of power. The roar of power is a powerful breath directed forward with strong impact. The new result, however, is a reverse breath that generates astonishing suction forward, pulling everything in front towards the host. The combination of breath and reverse breath will tear apart everything within the covered area like a torrent. Compared to simple breath and reverse breath, the killing effect is greatly enhanced. This is the dragon language magic obtained from the second deduction of Roar of Power, Torrent of Destruction. Along with the prompt, 2 new dragon roars appeared in Charles' mind like instincts. Charles couldn't help but let out a roar towards the sky. The rumbling roar was like rolling thunder, shattering everything in its path. Compared to before the second deduction, the power and range of this roar of power were clearly doubled. In addition, after this roar of power, Charles let out a completely different dragon roar. At this moment, everything in front seemed to be pulled by rolling air currents. Seawater, scattered rocks, all surged toward Charles and entered his mouth. It was as if Charles' mouth was a black hole, attracting everything in front. Just this one reverse breath, the efficiency of swallowing seawater and rocks was immeasurably higher than before, and a full 200,000 deduction points were generated under this one reverse breath. But Charles' actions were not yet finished. As Deep Blue prompted, neither the breath of the roar of power nor the reversed reverse breath were the true results of the second deduction. The combination of the two was the new dragon language magic. Charles' gaze fell upon the vast, dark beach in front of him. The roar of power had broken some of the dark rocks growing on the beach, and the reverse breath had also sucked in some scattered rocks. But for the beach and the seabed itself, there seemed to be no effect. It seemed even more solid, the blackness even more intense. Charles licked his lips, his eyes showing a fervent look. This likely meant that it could provide more deduction points. Then, Charles spread his wings and flew into the air, his fervent gaze fixed on the beach below. Then he opened his mouth and consecutively uttered 2 dragon roar syllables, which included the roar of power and its reversal. And this was precisely the dragon language magic he had deduced in the second deduction, Torrent of Destruction. As this 2-syllable dragon roar sounded, a violent shockwave roared forward, and at the same time, a surging reverse breath also generated from afar, converging towards Charles. Within the area covered by the Torrent of Destruction, it was truly like being in a turbulent vortex, torn apart by 2 opposing forces. The dark, viscous seawater, like petroleum, was torn into countless tiny water droplets. The rocks scattered on the seabed were torn into countless black stone powders. Even the seabed itself, if looked at closely, showed that the dense blackness on the surface was shaken by the Torrent of Destruction, torn and peeled away, with even blacker powder drifting in this area. During the duration of the Torrent of Destruction, the height of the beach within the covered area seemed to be a layer lower than the surrounding area. And in this area, it was as if a thick fog had risen, where one couldn't see their hand in front of their face, completely dark, filled with black water droplets and black stone powder. Charles watched this scene, his eyes growing more and more excited, directly tearing everything in the area into powder, and even lowering the seabed by a few centimeters. Even a fire dragon in here would likely have its flesh, blood, and scales torn apart, revealing a pale skeleton. This power had already surpassed the killing curse he used in his human form, the Eternal Blazing Sun spell. As expected of dragon language magic, known for its power, then, Charles opened his mouth and roared. The surging reverse breath appeared again, sucking the endless, dense water droplets and stone powder, measured in tons, from the front towards Charles' mouth. At this moment, the surging blackness was like a long dragon stretching for 100 meters, surging towards Charles. From a distance, Charles' ancient dragon body appeared incredibly small in front of this blackness, as if it could be submerged at any moment. But the endless blackness, after entering Charles' mouth, seemed to disappear into another dimension. Deep Blue tirelessly converted deduction points. Every instant, the deduction points soared by tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands, a speed far exceeding that of devouring Dax's tentacles before. In a short while, when the blackness created by the Torrent of Destruction was completely devoured by Charles, the deduction points he had significantly consumed due to the secondary deduction of Roar of Power not only fully compensated for the loss but also soared by nearly 3 million again. Total deduction points, 5,500,000. Crack, crack. Sounds of scales and bones rubbing against each other emanated from Charles' dragon body. The continuous bursts of dragon language magic caused his dragon body to constantly strengthen. Compared to when he first mastered the Oxio spell, the scales on Charles' body appeared much darker, and the anti-magic effect had increased by at least 30%. His body size also grew by a circle, his length increasing from the original 5 meters to nearly 7 meters. And while inheriting the massive size of the Ukrainian iron belly, his body also became more streamlined, his strength more formidable, and his speed and agility also significantly improved. It could be said that even without considering the improvements from dragon language magic, the enhancement of his dragon body alone would allow Charles to completely crush himself when he first transformed into a fire dragon. This was the special strength of an ancient dragon who had mastered dragon language magic. However, at this moment, Charles had no time to pay attention to the changes in his dragon body. His eyes revealed a look of anxiety. Last time in R'lyeh, he thought he could keep eating there, but after Dak disappeared, he was kicked out of R'lyeh not long after. After that, Charles truly regretted it deeply, regretting that he couldn't eat a few more bites. This time, Charles did not want to repeat the previous regret. Time was running out, he had to eat more. Looking at this vast beach, Charles circled and flew in the air, unleashing another torrent of destruction on another area. When he once again devoured the black powder after the torrent of destruction, Charles' deduction points broke through 8 digits for the first time. Total deduction points exceeded 10 million. Join me on Patreon if you want to request a novel, link in the description. 56 Storm Summons. Turns out I'm not crazy enough. But at this moment, Charles looked into the distance. Since he was flying in the air, coupled with the excellent eyesight of dragons, his field of vision was dozens of times wider than when he first came to R'lyeh. He could already see that the edge of the ancient city of R'lyeh in the farthest distance seemed to be starting to become illusory. The illusion was gradually spreading towards the beach where he was. This undoubtedly gave Charles a signal. The buffet's time limit was almost up, and it was time to close. The anxiety in Charles' eyes grew stronger. Wait a little longer, wait a little longer. I can still eat, let me eat a little more. 10 million points, although an extremely large number. But the places where Charles needed to use deduction points now were also countless. Deducing dragon language magic in ancient dragon form was a bottomless pit, with consumption often reaching several million. This was just Charles' first magic, Oxio. When he obtained the second and third Oxio in the future, the consumption would definitely not be small, and the magic Oxio itself could be further deduced 4 or 5 times. These were astronomical amounts of consumption. Charles still had a bunch of very practical wizard spells that he simply didn't have enough points to deduce. The more deduction points he had, the more he felt they weren't enough. Every minute and every second spent in R'lyeh was precious to Charles. If he didn't eat enough this time, who knew when he would be able to come to R'lyeh next time? What if his friend Dak also got smart and stopped pulling him in? What then? What if R'lyeh also directly blacklisted him? What then? Therefore, without a moment's hesitation, Charles decided to go big in this final period. His orange dragon eyes were filled with madness. Deep blue, based on torrent of destruction, deduce it 3 times in the direction of a larger range and more powerful force. 3 deductions. At this moment, the total number of deduction points, which had previously soared to 10 million, plummeted like a roller coaster. But what followed was an earth-shattering dragon roar that seemed to come from above the clouds, within the dark clouds, and under the raging storm. In Charles' dragon eyes, he seemed to see an ancient dragon bathed in storm and lightning, spreading its sky-covering wings, its body circling and dancing, emitting a dragon roar like a natural disaster. Then came the storm that swept across the sea, capable of raising giant waves hundreds or thousands of meters high, like a world-ending catastrophe. In Charles' mind, he understood the meaning contained in this dragon roar. Power, wind, summons, destruction. Vast power, like a natural disaster. Compared to this dragon language magic, the previous torrent of destruction seemed like a small scene. The next moment, Deep Blue's mechanical prompt sounded in Charles' mind. According to the host's request, 3 deductions have been performed on torrent of destruction in the direction of destructive power and range. The host has obtained the dragon language magic of the ancient dragon sky faction, Storm Summons. Using the ancient dragon roar, it vibrates natural magic power, stirring up the most violent storm over a large area. An adult ancient dragon casting Storm Summons is enough to destroy a small city. Even though he had personally experienced the power of dragon language magic, Charles couldn't help but be shocked by the power of the ancient dragons at this moment. 3 deductions, and he obtained a magic capable of destroying a city. What about 4 or 5 deductions? There were only fragmented records of this terrifying race in wizard books. In what the wizards called the Ancient Era, the ancient dragon race had already declined. It was said that the surviving ancient dragons were not worth mentioning compared to the powerful beings in the ancient dragon race. But even so, the few times wizards faced ancient dragons, the records left behind were of unshakable and invincible terror. So, how did the ancient dragon race decline? Such a question arose in Charles' mind, but he suppressed it in an instant. This was not something he could think about now, and besides, now was not the time to think. He had spent 10 million deduction points, all for the sake of getting back his capital multiplied. At this moment, the illusory area in the distance was constantly spreading, and the speed was getting faster and faster. Charles didn't dare to delay for a moment, spreading his wings and circling in the air. From his mouth, ancient, low dragon roars continuously echoed. If there was anything here that understood dragon language magic, they would be able to discern the meaning of the dragon roars coming from Charles' mouth. Gale, heed my command. Ancient Dragon Sky Faction Dragon Language Magic, Storm Summons. As the complete Storm Summons dragon roar came from Charles' mouth, rumbling thunder exploded in the sky. What followed was a storm area covering a radius of 1 mile. Winds comparable to the most extreme gales recorded by humans held and enveloped this area. Heavy black rocks were swept into the sky by the storm like rags. The black seawater, viscous like oil, also began to surge with giant waves dozens of meters high in this area. Wave after wave surged forward, each higher than the last, like monstrous hands trying to drag Charles down from the sky. Even the seabed in the shallow areas was scraped up with large pieces of gravel and debris by the gale. Within a radius of 1 mile, it was thick with blackness, filled with black water droplets and gravel and debris swirling and flying at high speed. If anyone entered this area, they would instantly be ground into debris, bones and all. Even a fire dragon would suffer torture comparable to Lingchi in this vast area. It could be said that, in reality, this area was a death-forbidden zone, and at this moment, Charles circled and flew above this death-forbidden zone. Dragon roars echoed one after another, reverse breath, reverse breath. In the death-forbidden zone, streaks of black long dragons held, attracted by Charles' reverse breath dragon roar, flying towards his location, entering Charles' mouth, and transforming into points that began to climb and surge again in the deep blue system. 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, 10 million, 20 million, 30 million. When the points surged to 35 million, the distant illusory moment arrived. Instantly, Charles let out a wail. No. I don't want to go. How about you let me stay? This beach of yours hasn't been taken care of for too long and it's rotten and smelly. I can help you clean the beach and maintain hygiene, as long as you provide food and lodging. If not, can I pack up a piece of the beach? But before he could finish speaking, the scene of the dream lie disappeared from Charles' eyes. What appeared before him was the familiar room in the leaky cauldron. Charles scrambled up from the bed with a whoosh, his face full of grief. No, my lie, how can I live without you? No matter how beautiful the golden sunlight is, it cannot compare to the green sun of R'lyeh. No matter how beautiful the azure seawater is, it cannot compare to the viscous black seawater of R'lyeh. The beach of R'lyeh is the most beautiful beach I have ever seen. Leaving R'lyeh, everything is so dim and lifeless. Give me a chance to go back again. Charles sighed for a long time, but still had to accept the fact that he had temporarily left R'lyeh. Since things had come to this, sighing would not help. One must be strong. A determined look appeared in Charles' eyes. Why should I only wait for Dak to pull me in? Isn't this holding me back? How can the core technology for entering R'lyeh be in Dak's hands? I must break through this. He began to concentrate his thoughts, recalling the process of entering the dream R'lyeh twice. The first time, he escaped from Dak's basement, hadn't eaten or drunk for a long time, and had released the eternal blazing sun spell, adding to the burden. He fainted as soon as he escaped. The second time, he had continuously pursued the group of wizards who stole the fire dragon materials, consuming a lot of physical strength, and ended with another eternal blazing sun spell. He was quite tired and wanted to rest. Charles' eyes gradually lit up. Both times happened when my mental state was not good. When I was in good condition, even when I went to sleep, Dak didn't pull me in. Could it be that entering the dream R'lyeh is related to my mental state? The worse my state is, the easier it is for Dak to pull me into R'lyeh. This indicates that the key to entering R'lyeh lies in one's mental state. As he thought this, Charles' face showed a pensive expression. But even when I was unconscious, I couldn't enter R'lyeh on my own. I still had to rely on Dak pulling me in. Why is that? Why can Dak stay in R'lyeh all the time? Could it be because our mental states are different? Instantly, Charles felt as if he had grasped the key. From the first time he met Dak, he felt a chilling madness about him. Dak also kept saying that he could hear the Ancient Ones whispering in his ear. After taking the elixir of sublimation, during Charles' escape from the basement, Dak seemed to become even more manic, roaring that he had succeeded, saying that he had witnessed those great beings again. Recalling these things, Charles suddenly understood. I see. It turns out it's because I'm not crazy enough. If I can become as crazy as Dak was at the end, perhaps I can also freely enter R'lyeh, or a place similar to R'lyeh. Charles' lips slowly curved into a smile. For a normal person to become as crazy as Dak, even developing a mental illness might not be enough. But Charles, was he a normal person? He had deep blue. Didn't he just need to be crazier? With deep blue here, anything is possible. Charles' mind constantly searched for knowledge related to changing the brain and spirit, and finally, a name appeared in his mind: occlumency. In the original work, this thing allows one to control their brain and spirit, focusing on what they want to think about. Even when subjected to legilimency, one can control what specific things are shown to the other party, and even fabricate false information. So, if I use Deep Blue to deduce occlumency to its peak, to the point where I can freely control it and make the crazy scenes Dak mentioned appear in my mind. If I'm this crazy, will I still won't let me in? Thinking of this, the curve of Charles' mouth grew wider and wider, because in his upcoming first year at Hogwarts, the two strongest legilimency masters in the wizarding world would both gather in the castle. The Dark Lord, the White Lord. When it comes to legilimency, no one is stronger than them. Their attainments in mental magic are imaginable. At the same time, Hogwarts also has a master of occlumency, Snape. Able to deceive Voldemort's legilimency, Snape's occlumency is also among the strongest in the wizarding world. From them, Charles should be able to gather a large amount of material on legilimency and occlumency. By then, 4, 5, or even 6 deductions of occlumency should be possible. Charles didn't believe that he still couldn't become as crazy as Dak. Dak, we will meet again, we will definitely meet again. You, and those ancient ones you believe in, don't even think about keeping me out. You can't get rid of me. Join me on Patreon if you want to request a novel, link in the description. 57, Strength Soars, Hand of Glory, Son of No Light. Taking a deep breath, Charles slowly calmed the eager desire in his heart to enter R'lyeh again. After all, although R'lyeh seemed like an unlimited buffet to him, the ancient and powerful magic of the place was evident just from the deduction points provided by the seawater and reefs in R'lyeh. Dak had only just undergone sublimation, but if Charles hadn't had the ancient dragon form of a magical animagus, he would probably have had to go through a lot of trouble to deal with him. Using occlumency to drive himself mad in order to gain permission to enter R'lyeh was something that still required caution. What's more, the commotion Charles caused this time was not small. If he were to force his way into R'lyeh again in a short period, if he were to attract something extraordinary, it would likely be bad. Therefore, Charles suppressed the desire in his heart and instead focused his attention on the gains from being pulled into R'lyeh this time. This time, Charles' harvest in R'lyeh was truly abundant. The ancient dragon form gained 2 new dragon language magic spells, Torrent of Destruction and Storm Summons, both of which surpassed the range and power of the eternal blazing sun cast in human form. And after the final Storm Summons Dragon Roar, amidst the howling wind, Charles' dragon body was further tempered. Magic resistance, strength, speed, and size were all comprehensively improved. If Charles were to transform into his ancient dragon form now, he wouldn't look like a young dragon, but rather like one that had entered its youth. The ancient majesty he exuded was far stronger than that of a dragon. The two were not on the same level at all. Relying solely on this dragon body, over 99% of wizards and magical creatures in the wizarding world could only feel despair in front of Charles. Not only that, but as Charles quietly felt his body at this moment, a look of surprise and shock appeared in his eyes. He tried clenching his fist. A powerful force surged from within his flesh and blood. He casually threw a punch, and a crisp sound like a whip cracking through the air even echoed in the room. Although Charles had participated in various sports competitions in the Muggle world and his physique was far stronger than children of the same age, it was definitely not this strong. This was simply abnormal. A look of understanding appeared on Charles' face. The human form and animagus form of a wizard are not completely separate but influence each other. Peter Pettigrew is a typical example. He was inherently cowardly, so his animagus transformation was a rat. And after that, he remained anonymous for over a decade, transforming into a rat to avoid pursuit, and even after returning to human form, he retained many rat-like behaviors. In ordinary animagi, this influence is not noticeable, at least it only becomes apparent after prolonged transformation. But in the magical animagus I have mastered, this influence is much greater. The powerful magic of the ancient dragon form has undoubtedly had a promoting effect on my human form. My physical strength has therefore greatly increased, reaching a nearly inhuman level. Charles sensed the magic within his body again, and the joy on his face grew even stronger. Compared to before, the intensity of his magic had undergone a near qualitative leap, as if he had undergone a permanent magical transformation on his body, far exceeding that of most adult wizards. This also caused Charles' combat power in human form to rise accordingly. For example, the strength of his transfiguration was much stronger than before. Previously, Charles' transfiguration skills were sufficient, but due to the limitation of his magic intensity, some transformations could not be used. Now, these were no longer problems. And the most significant change was perhaps reflected in the Eternal Blazing Sun spell. When he first deduced the Eternal Blazing Sun spell, one cast of the Eternal Blazing Sun spell would cause a great burden on Charles, even leading to exhaustion and fainting. Not long ago, Charles used the Eternal Blazing Sun spell to eliminate traces, and although he wasn't exhausted to the point of fainting, he felt very tired. But now, thanks to the feedback from the ancient dragon form, Charles didn't dare to say that he could use the Eternal Blazing Sun spell like a stupefy, but at least he could cast 7 or 8 without feeling strained. How much had his strength in human form increased compared to before? A look of relief appeared in Charles' eyes. Transfiguration is indeed a field that powerful wizards like Dumbledore and Voldemort deeply study. The investment in animagus transfiguration has truly yielded rich rewards. This is only my first magical animagus transformation. When I gather the blood of the other 2 powerful magical creatures, the feedback from the 3 forms might be even stronger. Then, with 4, 5, or even more deductions of transfiguration, magical animagus might even be able to transform into creatures from myths. Then, Charles' gaze fell on the 35 million deduction points. After a moment of hesitation, he still decided to use a portion of the points to continue improving his strength in wizard form. Previously, most of his investment in wizard form was in control and escape. Because at that time, magic was a major weakness, and even if he deduced more powerful combat spells, the burden was too great to cast them, and the improvement in strength was not significant. But now, since magic was no longer a constraint, he could improve it properly. The ancient dragon form was a trump card that Charles would not use unless absolutely necessary. After all, the appearance of an ancient dragon in this era would truly be earth-shattering, potentially drawing out countless reclusive wizards. Not to mention that Charles' ancient dragon form was achieved through animagus transformation. If that got out, it would truly cause an uproar. Countless people would covet this power. With so many methods for wizards to extend their lifespan, who knows if among those who covet it, there are beings comparable to Dumbledore or Voldemort. Given the existence of bizarre places like R'lyeh, who can say for sure? Therefore, before he grows strong enough to protect himself against 2 or 3 Dumbledores, Charles doesn't plan to expose his ancient dragon form. Improving his strength in his wizard form is still necessary. After a moment of thought, Charles made a decision. His gaze fell upon the Lumos spell and its derived spells, which had been with him the longest. Having already been derived to the level of the Eternal Blazing Sun spell, this series of spells naturally couldn't be abandoned. In terms of power, the Eternal Blazing Sun spell was already extremely formidable, only slightly weaker than the ancient dragon form's Dragon Roar, more than enough to deal with 99% of opponents. However, even with the control provided by the Dust-Free Land Curse, the Eternal Blazing Sun spell was too conspicuous and its casting speed was a bit slow, which were still significant drawbacks. Charles had also considered making the Eternal Blazing Sun spell less noticeable, ideally making it undetectable to enemies. But the derivation points given by Deep Blue for this direction amounted to several million, a number that even for the current Charles was not insignificant. Deep Blue's reason was that the Eternal Blazing Sun spell inherently emitted light and heat like the sun. To make the sun not dazzling? This difficulty was too high, naturally requiring more derivation points. However, before this, Charles had obtained a dark magic item from Borgin and Burke's in Nocturne Alley that happened to possess this characteristic. Using it as a material might significantly reduce the points needed for derivation in this direction. Next, Charles rummaged through his belongings and took out a withered hand. This hand was called the Hand of Glory. Its characteristic was that the light source lit on it could only be seen by the person holding it, and it could illuminate most magical fogs. And it's important to know that those magical fogs contained obscuring magic, yet they could still be illuminated by the Hand of Glory. This indicated that the light source lit by the Hand of Glory also possessed a certain degree of magic-breaking effect. Both the light visible only to himself and the magic-breaking effect were characteristics Charles needed. If the light of the Eternal Blazing Sun could only be seen by Charles and not by others, then even if an enemy was struck by the Eternal Blazing Sun, they might not even react. Furthermore, in addition to the Eternal Blazing Sun, the laser spell could also inherit this characteristic. A laser that cut through everything, yet was only visible to Charles. This was the true Sectum Sempra. Coupled with the magic-breaking property, its killing power would skyrocket. Then Charles, even in his wizard form, could easily break the defenses and kill some magical creatures with strong anti-magic abilities. A moment later, Charles waved his wand. A firefly-like light flew towards the Hand of Glory, landing on its finger. Strangely, as soon as the light landed on the Hand of Glory, it vanished without a trace. Only when Charles held the Hand of Glory could he see this beam of light. Just as he personally experienced this phenomenon, Deep Blue's prompt sounded in Charles' mind. Host has obtained a high-level material usable for Lumos spell derivation. Subsequent derivation points for Lumos spell have decreased. Deriving the Lumos spell 4 times according to the direction previously proposed by the host, adding the visible only to me characteristic and the magic breaking characteristic, requires 1 million points. Proceed with derivation. Hearing the prompt, Charles' eyes lit up. 1 million derivation points was significantly less than the several million points required when he had inquired before. In Charles' opinion, exchanging it for a significant increase in the stealth and killing power of the Eternal Blazing Sun spell was very worthwhile. Therefore, Charles decisively chose to agree. Derive. A moment later, the magical knowledge contained within the Hand of Glory was analyzed by Deep Blue, and it began to constantly attempt to integrate it into the Eternal Blazing Sun spell through repeated derivations. To make the sun invisible and only visible to oneself, such a proposition, even in the eyes of countless imaginative wizards, would be the idea of a madman. But the miracle was achieved just like that. In Charles' mind, the dazzling radiance of the Eternal Blazing Sun spell, like the sun, while retaining its scorching light and heat, gradually dimmed until it disappeared into nothingness. Deep Blue's prompt sounded immediately. Lumos spell 4 derivations completed. Host has obtained the improved version of the Lumos spell, Light of Revealing. Host has obtained the improved version of the laser spell, Night's Edge. Host has obtained the improved version of the Eternal Blazing Sun spell, Sun of No Light. Join me on Patreon if you want to request a novel, link in the description. 58. 4 deductions, All-Weather Protection, Dragon Armor Spell. A series of prompts appeared in Charles' mind. Immediately after, seeing this series of derivative spells of the Lumos spell, even though he had seen the violent ancient dragon magic, Charles couldn't help but curl his lips into a smile. First, let's talk about the improved version of the Lumos spell and flash spell, the Light of Revealing. This incorporates the characteristic of the Hand of Glory to illuminate through mist. Once cast, disillusionment charms, invisibility cloaks, and even various hidden magical traps within the range will be revealed. If one were to explore ruins filled with magical traps, or encounter enemies with invisibility abilities, the Light of Revealing could play a significant role. As for the improved version of the laser spell, Night's Edge, that is a direct and massive improvement in lethality and concealment. Charles casually waved his wand, and the tip of the mithril wand immediately burst forth with a beam of light, making it look like a Jedi's lightsaber from a movie in his previous life. This was the form of the Night's Edge spell, but this light blade was only visible to Charles, who held it. To others, the tip of Charles' wand appeared empty, with no abnormality whatsoever. Only when the light blade reached them and cut them down, perhaps then they would feel this terrifying sharpness. Furthermore, the Night's Edge spell also had a partial anti-magic property attached, causing it to be remarkably effective at cutting through protective spells and resistant skin. Under the swing of the Night's Edge, even dragon scales and dragon hide could be pierced. Charles was quite satisfied with this. It must be said that the combat spells deduced by Deep Blue were extremely well suited to Charles' own characteristics. He had the feedback from his ancient dragon form, and even in his wizard form, his physical strength would continuously increase. With his powerful physique, combined with the Night's Edge spell, as well as dust-free land and short-range apparition, he was simply a bane to wizards. And besides these few spells, what excited Charles the most was naturally the ultimate result of this deduction, the Sunless Sun spell. From Charles' perspective, the Sunless Sun, like the Eternal Blazing Sun, was a dazzling ball of light, radiating light and heat like the sun, incinerating everything within its range. But to enemies, they couldn't see the ball of light of the Sunless Sun at all. Only when the light and heat erupted would they notice the abnormality, and by then, it would already be too late. Furthermore, the Sunless Sun spell also came with an anti-magic property. Although its theoretical destructive power might be slightly inferior to the Eternal Blazing Sun spell, when cast on enemies who had cast protective spells or possessed resistant skin, the damage caused would be significantly higher than that of the Eternal Blazing Sun spell. Charles' expression grew increasingly satisfied. With this, the killing power of his wizard form instantly soared by a large margin. In many situations, there was no need to transform into an ancient dragon to resolve the battle. The ancient dragon form could be his deepest hidden trump card, to be used at the most crucial moment. And after increasing the killing power of his spells, Charles' deduction this time had not stopped. In his ancient dragon form, his entire body was covered by dragon scales and dragon hide with super strong anti-magic effects, giving him a strong sense of security. Ordinary spells would be directly bounced off his dragon hide and scales. Even the Avada Kedavra, if used on him by an ordinary wizard, would, as Moody said in the original work, at most cause him to bleed a little from the nose. But now back in his wizard body, what Charles felt most clearly was not the difference in magic power, but the fragility of his wizard form. Without the protection of dragon hide and scales, he truly felt very insecure. In a chaotic battle, a stray spell flying over might just take Charles' life from behind. Therefore, this time Charles not only had to make up for his killing power, but also had to make up for the protection of his wizard form, becoming a true hexagonal warrior. Coincidentally, when it came to protective spells, Charles didn't even need to refer to other materials. His dragon hide and scales and his ancient dragon form were the best reference materials. Within the dragon hide and scales of ancient dragons, powerful magic power was contained, arranged in a specific way, forming a porous membrane structure. The moment a spell hit, it would slide off directly, like a drop of rain falling on a lotus leaf. The principle of wizard's shield charms was somewhat similar, but compared to the dragon hide and scales of ancient dragons, it was naturally far inferior. Charles had the first-person perspective material, so of course, he didn't need to refer to other shield charm papers. The next moment, Charles let out a low growl in his mind. Deep Blue, use the ancient dragon's dragon hide and scales as material to deduce the shield charm. First deduction, second deduction, third deduction. Let's do it all at once. Instantly, over 100,000 deduction points were deducted. The anti-magic principle of the ancient dragon's scales and hide, and the operation method of the shield charm, were vividly displayed in Charles' mind. In countless parallel worlds, countless Charles studied the shield charm day and night, integrating the ancient dragon's anti-magic principle into it. The barrier released by the shield charm gradually produced differences at the microscopic level. Layers of structures similar to the magic power on the ancient dragon's body surface were generated on it. When a spell hit, the layered, fuzzy structures would continuously brush against the spell, transferring its direction, as if making it slide away. At most, only 2/10 of the full magic power could truly strike the protection. Even the most powerful spell, weakened like this, naturally found it difficult to cause any substantial damage. When this structure was completed, a deep blue prompt sounded in Charles' mind. 3 deductions of the shield charm completed. Host has obtained the dragon armor spell, greatly increasing resistance to spells. Charles was not satisfied with this. In his opinion, protection that required manual casting to be completed was not protection. What if he didn't have time? What if he was stabbed in the back? Only protection that ran continuously 24 hours a day could be called foolproof. So, immediately after, Charles interrupted the deep blue. For deductions. Keep pushing it higher for me. In an instant, more knowledge about protective spells surged into Charles' mind like a tide. The dragon armor spell not only became an instinct but also, through repeated deductions, gradually transformed into a spell similar to animagus transformation, which could be completed with a single thought without needing to cast. But this had not yet met Charles' requirements, and the deep blue continued to deduce. Finally, after consuming another 1,000,000 points, a defense that could utilize Charles' subconscious to complete the dragon armor spell and provide all-day protection around his body was born. The deep blue's mechanical prompt sounded in Charles' mind. For deductions of the shield charm completed, the dragon armor spell will be activated by the subconscious, operating automatically around the body for all-day protection without requiring the host's subjective control. The moment the deep blue's prompt sounded, a strange instinct surged within Charles' body. Magic power began to condense on his body surface. Without a wand, and even without him actively thinking, an invisible magic defense similar to ancient dragon hide and scales enveloped his entire body. Join me on Patreon if you want to request a novel, link in the description. 59. Defensive Strength. Someone's delivering themselves again. After hearing Deep Blue's prompt, Charles' eyes finally showed satisfaction. No need to actively cast, but relying on subconsciousness to cast spells, achieving 24-hour protection. This is what a perfect protection spell is called. Then, Charles felt the magical protection covering his entire body, and a look of curiosity appeared in his eyes. He also wanted to see how strong the protective power of the dragon armor spell, which he had spent over 1,000,000 points to deduce from the shield charm 4 times, really was. First is the defense against physical attacks. Charles waved his mithril wand, and a fruit knife in the room whistled towards him. But just as it was about to get close to Charles, the fruit knife first hit the dragon armor spell protection on Charles' body surface. With a crisp sound, the fruit knife broke directly into 2 pieces. Charles' eyes showed surprise. The basic industry of the magical world was not very good, and the quality of the fruit knife was not good, but it shouldn't have broken so easily. It could only be that the protective power of the dragon armor spell was strong enough to shatter the fruit knife. But during this process, Charles didn't even feel anything, not even the feeling of being bitten by a mosquito. A strange look appeared on his face. This showed that the slight test just now was nothing compared to the protective power of the dragon armor spell. Charles waved his mithril wand again. All the miscellaneous items in the room turned into cold, shimmering swords, and dense blades were aimed at Charles. The next moment, accompanied by the waving of the wand, 10,000 swords whistled, engulfing Charles within. However, not a single sword could penetrate the protection of the dragon armor spell. At most, it made Charles feel a slight tingling sensation, and even felt like he was being massaged. At this point, Charles nodded with satisfaction. This level of defense was enough to deal with most physical attacks. This was only the strength of the dragon armor spell activated subconsciously. According to Deep Blue's prompt, if Charles actively activated the dragon armor spell, the defense would go up another level. At least against the various dangers that appeared in the original work, even if a mountain troll or giant swung a club down, or a dragon bit and tore at Charles, the dragon armor spell could easily withstand it. So, how strong is the resistance to magic that the dragon armor spell focuses on improving? After a moment of thought, the previous high-frequency laser curse erupted from the tip of the mithril wand and fell towards his finger. And when the laser landed on the dragon armor spell protection layer, Charles had a strange feeling. This feeling was like trying to catch a loach with your hand, slippery and completely without force. Spells falling on the dragon armor spell felt the same way. The original laser curse was enough to cut through gold and jade, but at this moment, falling on Charles, it could only make Charles feel a slight warmth, not even a burning pain. Charles also tried transfiguration, but no matter what method was used, when it landed on the dragon armor spell, it was weakened to the point of being almost ineffective. Charles even learned a few spells like Bombarda, Stupefy, and Incendio on the spot and cast them on himself, but he was completely unharmed. It wasn't until Charles used the Night Edge spell, which he had just deduced and had a certain anti-magic effect, that the light blade slowly cut down. After a period of tough resistance, accompanied by Charles' continuous output of magic, it suddenly loosened at a certain moment, cutting through the dragon armor spell's protection layer. After completing these tests, Charles had a good idea. Spells without a certain intensity simply couldn't break the defense of the dragon armor spell. Even spells with anti-magic effects, such as his Night Edge spell or the Sectum Semper created by Snape in the original work, would be greatly weakened by the dragon armor spell and would require continuous output to break through the protection. And this amount of time was enough for Charles to react. It could be said that the completion of the dragon armor spell's deduction had boosted Charles' defensive capabilities by an unknown number of levels. Now, he was practically a humanoid dragon, as if covered in scales, full of a sense of security. After deducing these spells, Charles still had nearly 32 million points left, which made him sigh. I need to save points for multiple deductions of occlumency, and the dragon language magic of the ancient dragon form. I also need to study potions and alchemy in the future. I feel like the points are still not enough. If only there were more people like my good friend Dak who would deliver food to my door. A moment later, Charles shook his head and gave a wry smile. Where would I find such a good thing? Forget it, I won't dream anymore. I'll keep my feet on the ground and honestly fleece the Ministry of Magic. Immediately, Charles got up and walked towards Diagon Alley, planning to see if he could get some rare materials and stock up on more deduction points in the last period before going to Hogwarts. Diagon Alley. A figure completely wrapped in a black robe, covered tightly and out of the sun, looked at the bustling street and let out a low sigh. Britain, Diagon Alley. It's been at least 100 years since I was last here. If my master hadn't ordered me to find an ancient dragon this time, I'd probably still be in Romania dealing with those dragon farms, smelling the stench of those dragons. Since I'm finally here, I might as well relax and unwind first. After all, ancient dragons aren't that easy to find. Let's order some food first. The figure sat in the lobby of the Leaky Cauldron, ordered a deluxe meal, and specifically added a request. Make my steak rare, I want the kind that's dripping with blood. Old Tom glanced at the figure in surprise, a sudden realization dawning on him. Looking at the figure's heavily concealed attire and the peculiar request for bloody food, this person was likely a vampire. However, the surprise lasted only a moment. After all, in the wizarding world, vampires weren't that rare. Wizards also didn't fear vampires like muggles did. There were even vampires who became rock singers and were famous on the wizarding world's music charts. While the vampire was waiting for his meal, Charles walked out of his room on the second floor and headed towards Diagon Alley. As he passed through the lobby, Charles' steps paused slightly, his gaze subtly sweeping over the vampire. Although he hadn't transformed into his ancient dragon form, the feedback from the ancient dragon form had enhanced his wizard form's 5 senses, especially his sense of smell. He immediately smelled that there was an incredibly strong dragon blood aura on this vampire. This wasn't just someone who had been in contact with dragons and had dragon blood on them. It was likely that not a single drop of blood flowing in this guy's veins was his own, it was all dragon blood. Gulp. Charles couldn't help but swallow. It smelled so good. He really wanted to hang this vampire upside down and drain the dragon blood from his body. No, I can't do that, Charles, you need to calm down. How can I attack someone without a reason? There are too many people here, it's inconvenient. I'll remember the scent first. If I can find a less crowded place, it won't be too late to make a move. Suppressing the stirring in his heart, Charles walked away. And just after Charles left, the vampire looked up in Charles' direction, his eyes filled with shock. He had a magical item given to him by his master, which had no other purpose than to sense the aura of ancient dragons. If there was an ancient dragon aura within a certain range, this magical item would become hot. Just as Charles walked past him, the item almost burned the vampire red. A strong, incredibly strong ancient dragon aura. A look of ecstasy then appeared in the vampire's eyes. Lucky, I'm so lucky, to find traces of an ancient dragon so quickly. That little wizard, he must have been in contact with or encountered an ancient dragon, which is why he has such a strong ancient dragon aura on him. Following him, I can find that young ancient dragon. According to my master, that ancient dragon only knows the roar of power and won't be my opponent. I will become the first being recorded in the wizarding world to solo kill an ancient dragon. Immediately, as if he had thought of something, he couldn't help but lick his lips. Speaking of which, I'm almost tired of drinking dragon blood. But the taste of ancient dragon blood should be extraordinary, right? Perhaps I can try it this time. Then the vampire quickly got up and followed Charles from a distance through Diagon Alley. He's here, he's following me, he has ideas about me. Charles' mouth slowly curved into a smile that might have sent shivers down the vampire's spine. Great, great. Thank you. After my friend Dak, someone else is delivering food to my doorstep. Join me on Patreon if you want to request a novel, link in the description. 60, Vampire Earl? I'll just take a little blood, really just a little. Charles weaved his way through Diagon Alley, then expertly ducked into the entrance of a deep, dark alley. Seeing this, the vampire following behind him was also secretly pleased. He had been worried about how to deal with Charles in the bustling environment of Diagon Alley. After all, this was within the range where Dumbledore could arrive at any moment. Who knew if Dumbledore might be buying candy in Diagon Alley? Or if he encountered a few strong wizards who delayed him for a short while, he would be completely finished by the time Dumbledore arrived. Yet, before he could even figure out how to abduct Charles, Charles himself had ducked into a secluded alley. I remember this alley. The vampire muttered to himself in a low voice. This alley seems to be Nocturne Alley, the gathering place for dark wizards in Britain. It will be much more convenient to make a move here. Heh, I remember young wizards are warned not to come to this alley, right? I didn't expect this young wizard named Charles to actually come. Is it curiosity, or rebellion? It doesn't matter. The naughty child will receive a lesson this time that he will never forget. Immediately, the vampire quickened his pace, swiftly followed Charles, and also slipped into Nocturne Alley. After Charles entered Nocturne Alley, the atmosphere in the alley became unusually heavy. The moment the residents of Nocturne Alley saw Charles, their bodies stiffened, as if they were recalling the feeling of being planted in the mud like potatoes. Their hearts were also filled with bitter complaints. How long had it been? This little monster had just ransacked Nocturne Alley once, and he was back again. He wasn't going to do it all over again, was he? They were truly dirt poor. Some Nocturne Alley wizards hadn't even gotten new ones yet. The dark wizard stood stiffly on both sides of the road, looking as if they didn't know what to do. Just then, they also saw the black-robed vampire following closely behind Charles. In an instant, the dark wizard seemed to understand something, and their eyes, as they looked at the vampire, were filled with malice and anger. Well, you're the one who led the devils, no, led Lord Charles here? Of all the people you could target, you just had to pick this little monster, Charles? Some dark wizards even cast warning glances at the vampire, hoping to scare him away. After all, who knew if Charles went crazy later, he might even attack them and rob them again for good measure. They truly dared not trust Charles' character. This was someone who could threaten Borgin and Burks by splashing dung. At this moment, the vampire also noticed the situation in Nocturne Alley. Rows of dark wizards stood on both sides, which also made him click his tongue in surprise. This Nocturne Alley truly lives up to its reputation, it's quite fierce. A young wizard coming in actually attracted so many dark wizards eyeing him covetously. He felt a bit of relief. It's a good thing I followed quickly, otherwise if I were any later, I'm afraid Charles would only have a few pieces left. Then, facing the warning glances cast at him by the group of dark wizards, the vampire took off his hood, revealing his bright red eyes. In his eyes was a fierce and cruel light, as if warning these dark wizards in return, Charles is my prey, all of you get lost. The dark wizards were already cursing in their hearts. Truly, good words cannot save a damned ghost. They had already warned this vampire to leave quickly, and he actually thought the dark wizards were trying to snatch his prey. Idiot, there's no saving him. A dark wizard muttered a few words to himself, then turned and went back into his house, closing the doors and windows tightly. The other dark wizards followed suit, closing their doors and windows tightly, and even pulling the curtains shut, leaving not a single gap. It was as if everything that was about to happen in Nocturne Alley had nothing to do with them. They knew nothing and saw nothing. Seeing the dark wizard's behavior and the empty Diagon Alley in the blink of an eye, the vampire's lips curved into a smug smile. I thought I would have to spend more effort dealing with these dark wizards, but I didn't expect them to be quite sensible. They must have recognized my vampire Earl's blood-red eyes and know how powerful I am. This way, things will be much more convenient from now on. Immediately, the vampire Earl no longer concealed his footsteps. Tap, tap, tap. His leather boots made a crisp sound against the stone slabs of Nocturne Alley, the echo reverberating through the alley. The vampire Earl moved with elegant, unhurried steps, like an experienced hunter who had already locked onto his prey. At this moment, Charles, the prey, seemed to hear the movement behind him as well. An 11-year-old little wizard, who had stumbled into a place like Nocturne Alley, now found the alley empty except for the pressing footsteps from behind. One could imagine how he felt. Afraid, so afraid. Charles was so scared that tears flowed from the corners of his mouth. He quickly wiped them away and ran towards the deeper, more winding parts of the alley. A playful smile curved the vampire Earl's lips, and he continued to pursue at the same unhurried pace. Several minutes later, in a dead end, the vampire Earl caught up to Charles. Looking at Charles' back, the playful look in the vampire Earl's eyes grew even stronger. Oh, did you realize something was wrong? Are you scared? But it's too late now, poor child. Remember, don't enter such a dangerous place alone next time. He approached Charles step by step, elegantly, and then saw Charles' body trembling, as if he was trying his best to endure something. The vampire Earl opened his mouth, revealing sharp fangs, and slowly moved towards Charles' neck. Don't worry, it will all be over soon. Once I know what I need from your blood, you won't be afraid anymore, child. In return, you will gain eternal life. Now, reveal everything to me. Instantly, the vampire Earl took an elegant bite, as if sipping red wine, and bit down on Charles' neck. But the next moment, the sensation on his teeth was not that of piercing a blood vessel and blood spreading. Instead, it was a sharp pain, as if he had bitten into an iron ingot. The vampire Earl covered his mouth, crying out in pain. What is this? At this moment, Charles turned around. Only then did the vampire Earl realize that Charles, who had been trembling since just now, did not have an expression of fear on his face at all. Instead, it was full of longing and excitement, like an old gourmand seeing a delicious meal. And in this instant, the vampire Earl's vision went black as Charles' hand gripped his neck, lifting him completely off the ground. The hand gripping the vampire Earl felt nothing like that of an 11-year-old wizard, it was more like the claw of a young dragon. Charles looked at the vampire Earl and licked his lips. You're a vampire, right? Then you should have a lot of blood. Don't worry, I won't hurt you. I just want to draw a little blood from you. Yes, be good, don't resist. Let me draw a little, I really only need a little. Charles waved his wand and used transfiguration to conjure a massive blood pump. At the end of the blood pump was a small swimming pool large enough to bathe an elephant. Charles licked his lips. Just this much, filling 3 swimming pools will be enough. You're a vampire, after all. This much blood shouldn't be a lot for you, right? Join me on Patreon if you want to request a novel, link in the description.
Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today. Also, you can request any novel so I can turn into audiobooks. Check out our Patreon for more details.